Hey there, cats and kitties, as well as intrepid Play Arts Final Fantasy figure collectors. I recently came into the possession of a Final Fantasy VIII Play Arts Squall Leonhart figure, and in having done research ahead of time, I'd read a lot of care and concern from people about this potentially being a bootleg figure. There are apparently bootlegs and facsimiles of this particular figure out there in the market, and I had gone through several different blog posts and pages and comment threads to try to piece some information together whether or not my particular figure might be legitimate or might be a bootleg, and it was all like a myriad different places that I had to go to accumulate a whole bunch of information, most of which was stemming around the box art of the particular figure that I actually came into the possession of. A lot of people are getting the figure in a box that looks like this, whereas the original release that came out, I believe, in 2006 features a sort of rounded cutout on the front of it with the artistic logo of Final Fantasy VIII on the front. And you can actually see that logo on the side of this particular box. And so when I saw that mine didn't have that, and I saw a lot of people being concerned about the fact that they might actually have a bootleg in their possession, and that might denote it, I decided to do some research and really piece together what was going on with it. And so I wanted to do this video to really quickly just wrap up all of the things that I learned, piecing together information about this particular figure, not the Dissidia version. This is the original, Final Fantasy VIII Squall Play Arts figure release. So as to hopefully help people, tell whether or not a figure they're, potentially going to buy or a figure they've already bought may or may not be a legit figure. Now, what I've come to learn is, as far as why the box art is different, why it does not contain this particular logo on its front, is because this was apparently a re-release figure. The box has been updated to conform much more to some of the later releases as of around the time, I believe, of the Final Fantasy XIII series of figures, whereas a blog post that I read denotes something they stopped doing as of the time of the Final Fantasy XIII Play Arts figure releases was they stopped doing a serial number engraving on the bottom of their boxes. Most Play Arts figures before that, you could find an engraved number on the legit ones on the bottom flap of the boxes. And what they started to do was they started putting, ink posted serial numbers on the inside of the boxes where, you can't really probably see it on camera here, but if you look down underneath his feet and everything on the cardboard, the inside of the bottom flap, there is an ink pasted, serial number. So I know mine is legit based on that, but there are other factors that, came into question that I wanted to assure for myself that no, this is actually a legit figure. The first and foremost thing was it came from Japan. I bought it from a seller through Amazon in Japan, and I have the, postage on the box to prove it. That's where it came from. So that's one thing. If you're looking to buy this figure, avoid sellers in China and Indonesia and things like that. If you happen to be stateside in the U.S. like I am, if you find any, stateside sellers, get a good look at the box and everything like that, the box art and whatever, because there are certain things you can denote whether or not this is legit or whether it's fake just by looking at the box. But it's not solely revolving around whether or not that logo, this artistic logo, is here on the front. That's not enough to base it on, basically. Some of the other things you can look at as far as the outside of the box goes, if you look at the warning labels up at the top of the box, you'll note that on this side of the warning label, there's a lot of, space, blank space, and when you're looking at bootlegs, the information I've come across several times in doing my research is that they don't usually take the time to fit all of the, posted information that's supposed to be on the boxes in the correct format. So what you'll find most of the time with bootleg boxes is that all this clear space that you see on the side, you'll also see it on the top. The warning labels will appear very small. There'll be a lot of, extra excess cardboard around the top of it, denoting that it's probably not been formatted specifically for the box. The cardboard itself is also, if you happen to get your hands on it, it's very cheaply made, whereas this is a relatively sturdy box. If you find a bootleg and you squeeze it like a pillow, it'll sort of pop open at the top, everything like that. Another way to denote it is looking at the age warning over on the side of the box on the top. You'll note that this says for ages over 13. Now, bootlegs, from the information I've been able to gather, it explicitly says ages over 14. And the legit ones say 13. So that's another thing to look out for. Excessive space on the top of the warning label area, and, you know, expressly saying that it's for 13 and above, not 14. Now, another aspect that I noted on the back, there's a lot of information on the back. You can't always go based on the UPC labels, but bootlegs are said to often only have one or both of them, and they don't look quite right, that kind of thing, as well as the mailer information of the company that produced the figure and such like that. But one telltale sign to look out for a bootleg is this particular blurb right here on the back of the package that says, "Collect all figures in this series." Pay attention to the word "this," because the bootlegs apparently omit that word. It says collect all figures in series. Sort of broken English. And that's a way to denote that this might be a bootleg. If it does not have the word "this," collect all figures in this series, it might be a bootleg. Now those are things that you can look at outside the box. When you get, you know, the figure in hand, that kind of thing, you take out the figure. Another way to check out whether or not this could be a legitimate figure or a facsimile, a counterfeit production, is to look under one of the boots of the figure himself. There should be an emblazoned sort of branding from Square-Enix in the sole of the underside of one of his boots. Mine has this. It is the legit figure, and that pretty much proves it. So far as I am aware, bootlegs usually don't have any sort of iconography on the the footing where that write-up would be to denote that. And I have heard sort of some suggestion that sometimes you'll find it, but it will not be that crisp. It will not be that deeply embedded into the foot, that kind of thing. But usually bootlegs do not have it at all told. Another thing for this specific figure has to do with the gun blade. Now, you might be able to notice that the base of the gun here is very sort of shiny silver, but the blade is not showing off very shiny in a similar fashion. It is still silver, but what they've done with the gun blade on the legit version, and this is exclusive to the legit version, is they've overrun the entire length of the blade with a slightly gold-tinted wash of paint, so that this silver that's of this part of the weapon is not matched all the way down the blade. And this is a way you can denote that it's actually the legit, weapon as well as the figure, because the bootlegs are said to have a very bright, shiny, almost white silver effect. And that's, because of the cheap paint and everything like that. They haven't put in as much care or quality control because it's fake, that kind of thing. And you can really look at that overall with the figure as well. The paint apps and everything, the quality control of the face. Mine, as soon as I took it out of the box, I saw this guy looks like he just stepped off the screen from when I was playing an old save game of Final Fantasy VIII. It looks meticulous. The eyes aren't askew. The paint all over the figure is fantastic. Everything like that. I mean, it looks, absolutely perfect. There's also some, question of as to the legitimacy of the figures. The Griever Pendant and everything like that, I believe some of them don't have the chain at all with the little Griever on it, as well as on the gunblade. The gunblade will have it completely omitted. It won't have it. This one does. Or the chain will be either too small or too large for the figure. It hasn't been properly sized. And so these are just a few things that I have found through a bunch of different posts. There was nowhere that I went to that I found all this information in one fell swoop on the same, singular page. And I wanted to make this video to put it out there for anyone who is planning on, maybe picking this figure up or has already picked it up and is concerned about whether or not they might have gotten a bootleg, especially if it's revolving solely around, hey, the box art looks different from the original release. That doesn't immediately denote, in other words, you can sort of sleep safely if you think that might be a sign that it's a bootleg. It's not immediately discernible if it is a bootleg by that alone, because as you see, this one has that logo on its side, and such like that. That's basically what I really wanted to do with this video, is put this information I gathered through my travels online and through myriad pages. I'll also post some links in the description below where I got some of this information, having to largely do the legwork on my own just to make sure that this figure was a legit piece, even though it came from Japan. Because some of the discrepancies I was reading about, oh, it doesn't have this, is it a bootleg, this logo on the front, that doesn't immediately, denote the fact that it's a bootleg. It might not be. It might be a re-release that came after Final Fantasy 13, the series of figures, of Play Arts figures for that came out, where they changed things up. You can't immediately discern if it doesn't have an engraved serial number on the bottom, because it might be now placed internally to the box, where mine is. Which, as I say, the company changed it up to start doing it that way by the time Final Fantasy 13's figures came out. Again, looking at the box, if there isn't a lot of, headroom sort of over the warning labels, if the label suggests ages 13 and over, not 14 and over, as well as if the word "this" isn't omitted on the back. These are ways you can discern, just looking at the box, whether or not you've got a legit Squall Leonhart Play Arts figure. And as I say again, just, to carefully remind you guys, if you find the engraved, sort of emblazoning of the Square-Enix logo underneath his boot, if you look at the gun blade and it's not as shiny as it is here all along the length of the blade, such like that, the quality control of the paint, really, I just wanted to put this out there for anyone thinking about picking this figure up or already in possession of it. Things you can look for. In one fell swoop, you can just watch this one video and find out all this information. I would not highly recommend asking me questions about other Play Arts figures. This is like one of only a few I've ever gotten my hands on, and it's the only one I ever really thoroughly researched, because it was something I picked up recently, and I had come across, my figure collection where it said, oh, there's a counterfeit version of it. Well, there's not a lot of information spread across the internet wide where, you can find everything in one fell swoop. You have to basically go through all these, nooks and crannies and everything and piece it all together little by little just to assure yourself. And, again, that's really the sort of impetus into doing this video, was to put it out there, the things that I've accumulated, the information I've become aware of, to pin down that, yes, this is a legitimate figure. The fact that it came from Japan should have told me that from the beginning. But because I knew some people were concerned, hey, the box looks different and it doesn't have the serial number and such like that, there are some differences that not all pages take into account or have been, become aware of. And that information is not readily available upon. So hopefully this video will have helped anyone out who's thinking about, picking up this figure or has already picked up this figure. If you've been saddled up with a bootleg, I'm sorry about that. Of course, there's nothing I could really do about it. Hopefully you'll be able to, get your money back, that kind of thing, or get one that is legit in the future with this information, at hand and that kind of thing. So, yeah, otherwise, hope this video finds you well. Hope it helps you in the future if you're thinking about picking this particular figure up. And as I say, there are other links in the description below, some of the places I went and found information out about other Play Arts figures in different lines than Final Fantasy and such like that, just to hopefully guide the consumer, you, the wary consumer, to be better prepared for, putting your money out there and getting your hands on a figure like this, so you can sleep safely at night and not have to worry about having an illegitimate piece on your shelf, that kind of thing. And yeah, let me know in the comments below if you love Squall. He's one of my favorite all-time characters, not only in gaming in general, but in Final Fantasy. Could always highly relate to him, stuff like that. And I just had to have a figure of him. I have a couple other figures of him, one of the original smaller releases, as well as a Play Arts. I forget what it's called, but it's part of the Play Arts release, where it's like a mini figure of his Dissidia version, and he's got his sword slung on his shoulders and everything. And but I had to have this one. I've been really meaning to get this one for a long time. And because it didn't come in the original box, my concern, my ire was raised. Uh-oh, did I get a bootleg? Well, no. There are things you can, look at and assure for yourself it is the legit, real deal figure. So, yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this with this video. Find you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.